Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast, joined by the ever-present and effervescent Phil Perry. Phil, let's roll it back for a quick second as we head into Bill's week with a 1-5 Patriots team and give a listen to Bill Belichick prior to training camp in 2022, just when the team was coming back together and trying to build on a 2021 season where they went 10-7.
I think Mac's done a great job. He's worked extremely hard. He's got a tremendous work ethic, and in all areas, I think there's a dramatic improvement. His physical work and conditioning, working on his mechanics, working on his footwork, working on his understanding of our offense, of opponent defenses, of situations, all those things. He did a great job last year, but he's starting from a much, much higher point this year than where he started last year. So, his off-season work has been significant, and I think everyone recognizes, how well he prepares, and how much further along he was than he was a year ago.
All right, Phil, we all remember that dramatic improvement quote, and it was all rainbows and unicorns back then, wasn't it?
Sure was. But I think because he didn't have much buy-in from the quarterback with the coaching situation, that faded relatively quickly, is what it felt like.
Aside from the wins and losses and the money ill spent in free agency and draft picks missed and decisions made, where should stunting Mac Jones's development from the point where he was regarded by Bill as an ascending player who was already pretty good, stunting it to the point where he's trending towards becoming a backup quarterback in this league? Where should the Mac destruction land?
Top of the list. It's the most important position in the game, on the side of the ball that matters most when it comes to winning and losing football games in 2023. And the blueprint is out there, Tom. That's, to me, the most confounding part of how they've handled the quarterback situation, is that the blueprint is out there. Young quarterback, especially one like Mac Jones, with relatively limited physical gifts. But you can even throw that part out of it, because even the physically talented, quarterbacks get pieces put around them to help them excel, especially when they're young, especially when they're on these cost-effective rookie contracts. There are examples littered throughout the league over the course of the last decade plus, and they refuse to do it for some reason. It's almost as though Bill Belichick wanted to see, Tom, can this guy handle it as though he's being paid like a top quarterback? Mm-hmm. Because then we'll know if it's worth it 3, 4, 5 years down the line.
That's a really interesting point.
Whether or not we should actually pay him. So why would I surround him with talent now? That might cloud my decision-making moving forward as to whether or not I want to make this guy one of the highest paid quarterbacks in football. Whereas what he should have done in order to maximize his team's potential for winning and not waste everybody's time is surround the guy and try to win while he's on that rookie contract, and surround him with some expensive pieces and see what you can wring out of him in that situation. For some reason, he didn't do it.
They didn't do it, and I'm sure that there's listeners out there who are devoted listeners and devoted Patriots fans, and they're saying to themselves, wait a minute. They spent a crap ton of money in the 2021 free agency pool. They tried to bring players in. Two things on that. One, that was prior to Mac Jones being drafted. So they, as far as Bill knew, those were pieces that he was incorporating for Cam Newton. He didn't know who he was building it around, and he probably didn't expect Mac to win the job. Came clear throughout that summer that Mac was a much better option. And that's wild. He was a better option than Cam 2 years later. He might not be better than Bailey Zappi. But when we talk about the team didn't do anything, do you think that they tried to do things? I think there's enough evidence that says that they did not. They tried in 2021 to staff their offense, but they didn't really try to build around Mac, unless we roll it back to last week and look at that offensive switch where we're going to try and make it. We're going to run the Shanahan offense. We're going to go and make it simple for Mac. And we're going to get a speedy, skinny guy like Tyquan Thornton, and we're going to get a pass catching back like Pierre Strong, and we already have Bourne. But they didn't bring in any personnel that would be high end.
So that's where I look at it and say, I think they tried.
Yeah.
Because they thought Nelson Aguilar could be a number one receiver.
But they didn't try for Mac.
They thought Devontae Parker, I think, could be a number one receiver.
For Mac.
They thought that they had some real pieces around him. And that comes back to just a misevaluation problem. And so I think there is some effort there, though. But not much, Tom, because we could just look at the spending. Just look at the sheer numbers. And outside of that one-off season, where, again, that was pre-Mac Jones when they made all those moves in 2021, they're near the bottom of the league in terms of spending. And so they're just, that's the easiest way to look at how all in is this team anyway. Let's look at their books. Cash. Not a whole lot of it going out this year. Not sure they're really trying to do a whole lot in terms of winning football games. Like that's the very rudimentary and fundamental way of looking at this. And they're near the bottom. It's hard to make that argument that they've really made a great effort.
But Bill will say it ebbs and flows. And in 2021, they had the highest spending. And in 2022, they had the number 1 and number 3 tight end and wide receiver groups in terms of money allocated. So Bill could say, I tried, but we missed, or Johnny wasn't good enough, or whatever. But it's I'm not saying that they're spending hand over fist when you walk out there with Riley Reif and Calvin Anderson in your one glaring spot, and neither one can contribute at all. And you're left with Vidarian Lowe, who can't play professional football at the moment and might not be able to. God bless him. I can't either. But they just ignored the spots. They misevaluated the talent, and they misevaluated the talent to the detriment of Mac Jones, who now is in a position where Phil is giving out report card grades like what, Phil, this week?
He got a C-. Mac Jones got a C- this week. You think that's fair?
Yeah. I mean, he completed like 75% of his passes. I don't know if it's easy to give him an A, so I might give him a D+ just because that pick was so backbreaking. It was at the 8-yard line. I didn't really realize that until I saw the replay because I wasn't sure how deep they were. The ball was intercepted at the 8. And it wasn't a third down play. It wasn't a third down play.
No,
Either way,
it was second down. And they're sniffing points, Tom, and it's a 6-point. It ends up being a 6-point game, it ends up being a 4-point game. That's a at least 6-point swing. Yeah, I won't give them credit for maybe getting into the end zone because they don't get into the end zone all that often. But they could have easily kicked a field goal. That pick leads to a field goal on the other end. It's backbreaking. But he had a hand in a couple of penalties. He had his hand in a couple of sacks. The throws themselves, Tom, so ridiculously, laughably short on average. I was tracking it as the game was going on. Next Gen Stats tracks it live. Through 3 quarters, his average throw traveled 2.4 yards down the field. That is not professional football.
I wanted to look at the grid, the number of times he just threw it out to the side, and the Raiders, it's basically they were playing pickle, where the guy in the middle was actually just trying to jump up and knock the ball around instead of being in a rundown. And the ball arrived so slowly. And I said that on the first throw to Ramondre. And I tweeted out, look, you got to catch it regardless. But the ball is arriving in such a parabola. And I had people say, well, what's he supposed to do? Throw it through his chest? I'm like, there's got to be some in between throwing it into the guy's sternum and then, waiting and then delivering it with some rapidity, instead of just a straight balloon where Ramondre Stevenson's looking downfield about to get demolished. I'm not going to ask anything on that because I know you want to scoot to get over to the joint, to Gillette. What's the quarterback plan going forward? You pointed out, rightfully so, that and this was so interesting, Malik Cunningham was the backup on Sunday. Emergency quarterback was Bailey Zappi. If Mac Jones had gotten hurt in the first quarter, Malik Cunningham would have had to play for the next 3 quarters because the emergency quarterback is not available to you unless your backup gets hurt as well. So Malik Cunningham either would have had to fake an injury or just stand out there and play for the next 3 quarters. God bless him, and run around.
Which is so stunning to me even though they're 1-4 coming into the game, Tom, they are trying to salvage the season in some way. And you were a play away from not having an offense. I mean, they would have had to run some wildcat. They would have had to run some zone read, and maybe, because the passing offense was so rudimentary on Sunday, maybe Malik Cunningham would have had a chance to pull off some of those plays. But he hasn't practiced a quarter. Bill O'Brien a week ago was at the podium, and he was asked about Malik Cunningham and his work at quarterback, and he almost laughed at the idea of Malik Cunningham as a quarterback. And he said, well, he does a lot of receiver work for us. And he, every once in a while he gets some scout team. He got to, for example, and Bill O'Brien brought this up to us, he got to beat Taysom Hill in practice last week before they played the Saints. But he has not been practicing at quarterback, and they rolled him out there as the number 2, one play away from having to lead their offense. It's an incredible indictment of Bailey Zappi, number 1. But number 2, it feels, like just such a glaring admission of how they have mismanaged this position, because you can't really feel good about your chances of winning a football game with somebody with so few reps at quarterback coming in and potentially leading your offense.
For instance, here now too, there is no rule that says you can't dress 3 quarterbacks. The Patriots could have decided to dress 3.
Yes.
They could have said, instead of dressing Jeremiah Farms, they could have sat Jeremiah Farms down, who played 2 snaps and didn't play any special teams. They could have sat Jeremiah Farms and had Bailey Zappi up.
How about Michael Wenu, who's in uniform, Tom?
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that.
Not even moving in warmups because he can only play, I guess, in an emergency situation. Like, what's the point? What's the point there? Wouldn't you rather have the even though it's Bailey Zappi and they don't trust him at all?
The game would have been over. The game would not have been over if Antonio Mafi got hurt.
Right.
The game would have been over if Mac Jones got hurt, because Malik Cunningham, and I know there's probably plenty of people who are intrigued by Malik Cunningham. I am too, but it's different from the fourth quarter of a preseason game. It's incredibly fast. It's like being a new driver and being asked to go, or being a normal driver and say, go drive NASCAR. You think you're a good driver. It's just too fast. He'll be fine at some point, God willing, and have a fruitful NFL career, but not now. Not running a team for 3 quarters. Not fair to him. Positions to succeed. I think the first time I ever heard that phrase was when I was covering the Patriots, and Bill used to say that. Put him in positions to succeed.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Can I ask you this? Do you feel like this is an indication that the fact that Cunningham was the number 2 on Sunday, this is an indication that this is what they want to do moving forward? Because what I'm constantly reminded of when I talk to people on the team behind the scenes, there's only so many practice reps to go around. So everybody wants, maybe Bailey Zappi to be the number 2 because he's the most ready, but they also want Will Grier to be working his way towards potentially being the number 2. And they also want to see what they have in Malik Cunningham. No, that's not possible. You can't give that many quarterbacks real reps during the week in practice when you're actually trying to win a football game.
When you're trying to win, that's the key. Maybe week 10 becomes Malik Cunningham all week in practice if you're 2-8.
But the reason why I bring up the lack of reps is this. If they want to develop Malik Cunningham and see what he can do, and so they give him work in practice, do they look at it and say, well, he basically has to be the backup, because if we're going to give him real work in practice, real time in practice, well, Bailey doesn't have time and we don't like him anyway. And Will Grier doesn't have time to get ready. So sorry, Malik, it's probably not fair, but you're the guy who got the number 2 reps this week because we want to see what you can do eventually. So you're the number 2 moving forward. We'd like to see this plan through. And maybe that's how it ended up that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes. Those guys aren't ready either. You kind of are. Those guys didn't see anything about what we're going to do against the Raiders here. So at least maybe.
Well, even if you're not ready, we'd like you to be ready someday. And so we're going to give you a bunch of practice reps now. And if you're the one getting the reps now, sorry, but that means you kind of have to be the number 2 on game day.
Yeah. We got to make sure you get down there for Bill O'Brien. You still good to go?
Yeah, I get like a couple more minutes.
All right.
You got anything else?
Yeah. We talked about this in the office a little bit, but I do want to do one more thing on Mac, though, just to circle back. Again, Bill Belichick was in on Mac Jones. Maybe there was reticence that was pointed out to me by my friend Pete Kendall. He's pointed this out a few times to me. Watch how Bill looked around the room at the draft. He asked every guy there. I think that means I'm not on this by myself. And I agree. But I think that Mac wormed and wiggled his way into Bill's heart by the end of the 2021 season. I absolutely believe that. He showed up in that 47-17 loss to the Bills. He improved. He did so many good things. And then I think that Bill hoped that Mac would be a loyal soldier in 2022 and choke it all down when he was served up the Matt Patricia Joe Judge. And I think that Mac absolutely tried to. But when Bill made those comments, I do believe that on one hand, he was doing it to make sure that Mac knew Bill was in his corner and that they were a team because it was going to get tough, but also because he believed it. Do you think that Bill introspectively looks and says, wow, I screwed this up? Or does he look at it and say, I thought the kid was tougher?
There might be a little bit of both there. I think even he would look at the result, Tom, and say, I screwed this up. Whether or not he still to this day believes it could have worked, he now sees what happened and what the results were, how the players reacted. He understands the value of buy-in. He understands the value of making good decisions. And, you know, the fact that even his grip on a team can be tenuous. And so I think he looks at it and say, but boy, that was a mistake. Even if I still to this day think Matt Patricia can coach offense, look at us now. I screwed up.
If the kid
I don't think he's telling us anytime soon, but I think he believes that.
No. And he probably says, if the kid just bought in, because I'm sure Joe Judge is able to say that to him. If the kid just bought in, Bill, look how Bailey did. You know, Bailey's not wonderful. Bailey went to Division II school. Bailey's limited. Bailey bought in. It's Mac's fault, Bill. It's Mac's fault. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/NSBO and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Mass. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling helpline ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. Last point we're going to make, we might dive into this plenty during the offseason, but who's the Patriots core right now? Phil and I talked about this at length. I think he might be writing about something, a variation of it. You're going into a season that's kind of a lost season, and you're not like the 2000 Patriots where Bill was building something and you're impressing the boss because he ain't going anywhere. You're in a position where you don't know if the coach is going to be back or not because you read social media and you read the articles and you hate us, but you're curious. So as a player, you're looking at your situation going, I'm up at the end of the year. Bill might not be here. What am I doing here? Am I putting out good film? Am I in it for me? Am I getting pissed off because I'm here for 90 hours a week? This is a tough spot, huh, Phil?
It's a very tough spot. And I don't know how many players are truly invested in the future of this team. So when you find yourself in a situation like this one, where they're 1-5 and they could be 1-7 in a couple of weeks, what are you playing for? You're playing for yourself and you're playing for your future, but you'd like to have some program guys, right, who are invested in the team's future as well. Let's get this ship steered in the right direction for 2024, even if we're not going anywhere this year. Who are those guys? And I made a list and I looked at all the free agents. So there's a number of them. We've been over a lot of the names before, but Trent Brown, Kendrick Bourne, Micah Wenu, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, Kyle Duggar, Josh Uche, Matthew Slater, Ezekiel Elliott, Ty Montgomery, Anthony Jennings, Pharaoh Brown, all free agents. To me, really hard to be invested in the team's future, right?
Some of those are your best, what I would think, leaders too. At least Hunter Henry. I would say David Andrews is a leader. Ramondre Stevenson is a leader. I'll tell you what, Ezekiel Elliott's a leader. I'd get his ass back here in a hurry. If
and
I'm
some
a
of those
Patriot.
guys, some of those guys are still under contract, but their deals are up soon. Like, does Ramondre Stevenson think he's going to be a Patriot for the next 10 years? They haven't paid a running back in a long, long time. You know, I kind of doubt it. Mac Jones is a captain right now. Does he feel invested in this team's future? Does it feel like he's long for this team? Again, Matthew Slater is a free agent. Matthew Judon, I think, is an interesting one because I think he can be sort of an emotional leader in some ways, Tom. But he right now is going to be in the exact same contractual situation he was in this past offseason. Next offseason, they did the Stephon Gilmore plan with him. They moved money from the future into the present for him. So now the future money, though, doesn't look all that hot. And he's coming off an injury. But is he necessarily going to be around? I don't know. Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, those guys aren't foundational pieces to me. Here's the list. You ready? You ready for the list? This is the core. Let's start with the veterans. Under contract, foundational guys who care about the team's future, in my opinion. David Andrews, John Jones, Jawan Bentley, Dietrich Wise, Jabril Peppers. I don't know if you have a Pro Bowl among them.
How about, for the hell of it, just argument's sake, Adrian Phillips? Is he under contract going forward? Is he
under contract, but he's currently, Tom, being phased out.
Yeah, I was going to say he's getting a little marginalized. Yep. Okay.
You also have some young players that I would say are probably too young to be considered core guys, but they are part of your core moving forward for sure. They're not core leaders, but they are core guys. Christian Gonzalez, Keon White, Marte Mapu. I would even put Pop Douglas in that conversation. Maybe Marcus Jones.
Got anybody from the 2022 draft?
You think Cole Strange is part of this discussion?
I'll tell you, in interacting with him, it's a shame if he's not able to if he's not able to perform at a level that makes him valuable, because I think he is the kind of guy you'd want to have as part of your core.
I agree. And maybe he can get there. He's just been so hurt and he's still so new. Tyquan Thornton is the second round pick from that year again. So hurt, so new. I don't necessarily see these guys as, captains in 2024.
You have Marcus Jones and Jack Jones. One's hurt. The other one's also hurt and has made some questionable decisions, so you don't know where you're going with him. Not sure about Chad Ryland or Bryce Behringer.
But that's where we are. Isn't that kind of a scary place to be?
It is, because that's the essence of what happens over the next 9 weeks. There's a financial aspect to this too, Phil. There's a massive financial aspect. The Patriots are no doubt, relative to what they were, losing money. The players that they're paying and have paid in the last 3 years have not given a great return on the product. People aren't going to show up to watch those entertainers, nor are those entertainers providing production to make the whole show really watchable. So you got the zing and the zang. You have a production that is not watchable. And the Crafts understand the entertainment aspect, and they just spent a lot of money on their stadium, and they're always trying to do new things, and they're not making the money that they want to. And they spend a ton on the producer director, Bill Belichick. And he does not have the right gaffers.
How about Gerard Mayo as somebody who's invested in this team moving forward? He's under contract, right? They made it very clear that they had signed him to an extension. So he's here. Maybe Bill O'Brien feels the same way. Like, he's got to get this offense right. And down the line, they got to be much better if he wants whatever kind of opportunities he wants for the remainder of his coaching career. But I just look at that veteran group, Tom, and we think Christian Gonzalez is going to be a really good player. But that veteran group of Andrews, Jones, Bentley, Wise, and Peppers, I think they're all good character guys. I think they're all good locker room ads. None of them are top-end talents. Not a one.
Where to is this, where this lands on to cultivate and buttonhole and get the buy-in? It lands on 82-year-old Robert Kraft. because Bill can't necessarily articulate what's going to happen next year, because even he by now understands that things might be tenuous unless he's had a come to Jesus meeting with Robert and spoken about, okay, you're going to be back here next year, Bill, so get these guys on board. But if he hasn't, and I would say it's unlikely that that conversation has happened, Robert Kraft needs to be the one who's walking up to a Jonathan Jones or a Jawan Bentley or whoever else and saying, we're all in this together. We're still going to be doing this. And if he doesn't have that conversation with Mac Jones, or even if he does, it says an awful lot about what's going to happen with that position. They don't have a core group of guys that you know you're going to be leaving Port with next year. And Port next year is pretty friggin' soon. We're 5 months from free agency, 6 months from the draft, 3 months from deciding who's going to run the team. November, December, January. In 2.5 months, the Patriots have to make a decision as to who is going to be their commander-in-chief for the football operations for 2024. Good place to leave it. Let's get Phil down to Gillette Stadium. I'm going to get ready for quick slants.
Sounds good. I'll see you there.
Okay, guy.